print.com. So today we've got a couple of news items. The first one is about silicone 3D printing. So silicone 3D printing is something that we've traditionally been very bad at, really, to be honest. It's taken a very, very long time to get silicone to 3D print a little bit, not well at all. And some researchers have maybe come up with a way to significantly improve this. Sento Kumar Duravio and Dimitri Laurent and a whole bunch of other people at the University of Florida have made a support material from silicone oil emulsion. So this has a really low interfacial tension when used in conjunction with silicone-based inks, and that avoids a lot of the problems that other support materials have had. They've been able to make details of feature sizes about 4 micrometers, 8 nanometer wide components, and they've been able to use off-the-shelf silicone materials, including RTV silicone and UV curable silicone. So that's a great step forward, and that'll be of benefit, I think. I think the market for 3D printed silicone in medical device, in things that are kind of near medical, and also in a lot of like equipment that we use day to day is absolutely huge. And also there's a lot of overlap between silicone and the high value nature it gets deployed in things in or around the body, and the functionality it has, and 3D printing. So the mass customization of silicone could be a particularly huge application. So this is always good news. The next is by QOROX. QOROX, by the way, is spelled QOROX, has used a CYBe construction 3D printer to make kitchen elements for a daycare center in New Zealand. It's interesting to note that there's a company active in New Zealand as well doing 3D printing, and really this construction 3D printing is a really global and has gone global far quicker than a lot of other elements in 3D printing. There are countries where you wouldn't have like industrial 3D printer resellers, or you wouldn't have all of the main industrial 3D printers, metal printers and polymer printers wouldn't be available, but those countries have construction 3D printing going on, sometimes even with several players. So it's fascinating to watch this industry develop that quickly. The team really likes the textures, or using textures on the 3D printed parts to change the looks of them. And what I find very notable is the things that they really talk about in the interviews they've given and on the website and stuff are things like safety barriers, planter boxers, stormwater collection systems, wharf elements, pictures of a wharf element that has some shells embedded in the print that are supposed to promote marine life. So these are all things that I think are really great applications. I'm not sure about the marine life one. I don't know how that'll work, but the other ones like planter box and things like that, I think are absolutely wonderful applications because it's much faster than using a lot of precast stuff, and it's much more flexible. I really think that's a much more profitable approach, and you can make a ton of money with that, much faster than with houses. But anyway, now what's notable is that they had to, or the company in the press article mentioned that they were able to source 80% of their concrete locally and had to import 20% from the Netherlands, presumably, for the product. And they went out of the way to mention that. I think that's notable. Now, the next thing, and I'll get back to that in a bit. Now, the next bit of 3D printing construction news comes to us from Saudi Arabia, where there's a large developer called Arkan, and they have printed a 3-story home, 9.9 meters tall, 330 square meters, an area. That was a 26-day print. And it's said to be the largest 3D printed home structure in the world at the moment. Now, what is great about this is they managed to do this at the desert, where the temperatures can rise to 40 degrees or above, sea, much more above actually, and also the temperatures fall precipitously, let's say, in the evening and the nights as well. So the fact that this works really well, and they can print a structure this complex and a multi-story structure at that in those kind of environments are that's I think a great development. Also, the team says that they built the building to code, so that it's a compliant building. It's not just some test thing or something. This is something that they could put on the market, they could sell, people could move in. They also are looking primarily at 3D printing because it's new. They literally say that. So, hey, we're looking at all the new stuff in the world, which is cool. And then next to that, they also say that customization and flexibility is the most important thing. So they really want to go to a client and what they say, make tailored homes. So the customer will tell them, hey, I want this and this and this. And they can in a flexible way produce them the home that they want. And that for them as a developer is very notable. Now, it's also interesting to see that you were seeing specialized 3D printing companies, right? Specialized local 3D printing companies like QOROX, right? But also just developers, right? Experiment with 3D printing. Also sometimes just construction companies. So there's lots of different companies putting money and attention to this business. Now, what I think is the most interesting thing I learned today is the following. Now, so this company, Arkan, also mentions in its press the amount of materials that they had to import and the amount of materials that they can make locally. So a New Zealand company, completely different one, from a Saudi Arabian one, both took the time to say, you know what, 80% of our material is imported, the New Zealand firm says, or 80% of the material is sourced locally, and 20% we have to import. And Arkan also spontaneously says, we are using the CEMEX material, the CEMEX DFAB material, and we can use local materials for 99% of our print. And 1% of the materials are these special magical ingredients that we have to import from Denmark or from CEMEX's main area. And that to me is notable, that both companies would go out of their way to say this, to kind of emphasize the localness. And also, like, okay, does this mean that if I buy a printer from one company and I have to import consistently 20% of my material, whereas from the other company I would have to import 1% of my material, does that mean at one point I'm going to have a cost advantage? Or I'm going to have a significant cost advantage if, for example, the construction materials from overseas get taxed more or something like that. Is that going to be an advantage if I use a certain material or a certain printer? And that to me is especially if we're looking at government work and stuff like that, that's an especially kind of, that could be an especially tricky area. But it could also mean that if the CyBe printer and the COBOD printer were exactly the same, that for certain people, the one with the highest amount of local material usage, well, it could be much more advantageous. It could also be much more environmentally friendly, potentially. So that to me is something to really take note of, and I thought that was, the most interesting thing I've been thinking about now all day already, because of this, because that to me is a very exciting, interesting thing indeed. Now, I hope you like this. This is a pre-recorded version, so the audio is going to be wonky. It's going to come through one speaker, so apologies for that. I hope you thought this was worthwhile. And I want to wish you a lovely day. My name is Joris Peels, and this is another edition of 3D Printing News Unpeeled. Have a great day.